Ndibona mostly uthetha wedwa so andiyazi abahlale kule meeting bathuleni.
Kuthulekile.
So my one-way band, I don't think is achieve what we want.
Hayi sikhona babulondleni silalele mfethu.
Oh,
Ngiyanibingelela ngelihle igama likaJesu. Amen.
Man.
Ngiyaxolisa ukujoyina late kahle bengine some engagements so kuba mahlase mangifone ngathi I will try mase ngifika ngikhona ukujoin but ke ngiyabona ukuthi I joined on time before my session.
Yes.
Okay. Ngayifaka presentation mode and then do I have noma ngozoflip ama slides?
I think I gave you the control. I'm not sure if you are able to
Okay, imo flipayo noma
nguwe baba.
Okay, no. Thank you, sir. Okay, these slides, they're supposed to bring about a reminder in terms of financial management. So this slide, I try to make this presentation so that it's not only focusing on a treasury role for a district, but to look at the entire church finance. But of course, I reduced it so that it can fit in the time allocation we have for this meeting. So please feel free to ask questions as I proceed so that we don't go back. So what I'm intending to cover, maybe not exhaustively, is internal controls, budget and reporting audits, checks and balances. Then we touch later on the roles and responsibilities of a treasury. Okay. I mean, if you look at finances as a whole, there is quite a number of skills and or elements that you would require from an individual who's occupying this role. I mean, you want someone who's a strategist, someone who can strategize, someone who is able, who has the ability to plan, who understands the risks associated with finances, who has the knowledge of finances, someone who has passion for money and finances as well. And you also need okay, there's this thing that is shielding my screen now. You need to be able to make choices and make decisions, and then also you need to be able to this other thing, Babumvila, if it's a part of the slide, great. Boxing. Thank you. So you need some information that you can gather. So there is quite a number of things that you need in order to work with finances, especially in the church, so that you maintain transparency. And where there is transparency, and then people will actually be able to give freely without resistance. So this enable that. So let's look at internal controls. So what you need is you need to protect the money. So internal control is basically there to make sure that we provide protection for the money. This will ensure that there is accountability and church assets are not being abused and misused. And it promotes accuracy in terms of financial recording. People don't just record things as they please, but there is a structure and there's a strategy. And it also encourages the givers to have confidence in the people who are managing their finances. Most importantly, it prevents fraud. So where there is no transparency, where there is no visibility of what's happening, there are high chances of fraud. imali abantu abathihla ngomlenze abangayazi shona kuphi. So we need to cap that and eliminate that. So there are three basic types of financial activities. You have authorizations, and then you have recording, and then you have custody of assets. For example, who has and who manages the assets for the organization. You know, I mean, as Christian Crusaders, we have acquired certain assets. I mean, we need to understand who is allowed to use those assets, under what conditions, and what needs to happen. And all finances and transactions of the organizations, they need to be recorded, and we need to be dealing with authorized transactions. As a treasury, you need to grow a thick skin and be able to say no when you receive claims that are not authorized in terms of the policy of the organization. So all these, they should be performed by different unrelated people. So you can't have the same person who's doing all these things, recording and authorizing and checking all these things. Otherwise, you're gonna double count and move things within yourself without anyone knowing. Okay, best practices is that we prepare accounting procedures. You must have a manual or a procedure that governs and regulates this. And you must reconcile statements on a monthly basis, meaning you need to get statements from the bank, balance your statement, or what you call a cash journal, your monthly journal. You must balance it, make sure at the end of the day the balance that is in the bank statement corresponds with the balance that you are getting. And some people, what they tend to do with this, they tend to only record the money that goes into the account of the bank, and they neglect the money that they receive in cash. And that is where there is high chances and possibility of fraud and money losses, because any money that they don't get through the bank, then it means it does not get recorded. Why? Because they don't know how to record those funds. Because when you record those funds and you keep them, they need to come in as money that came in, but you need to take it out as cash at hand, or as you indicate the expense that the money is being used for. But you cannot just be silent about it. I mean, I've heard and I've seen these people just keep quiet about the money that has come through, and they don't do anything about it. So you must keep detailed monthly reports, which can be reviewed by the finance committee if you have one, or the other members of the executive, as part of auditing and making sure that everything is done properly. And we do encourage, I know at some point within Christian Crusaders, we spoke a lot about auditing our finances and our books. I'm not sure where that went, but there is still a room for that. Either we do it externally as an independent consultant, someone will come and audit our books, or we do our internal audits. You allow yourself to be scrutinized by the other members of the executive, who will check that everything is done properly. In this case, it means every claim needs to be supported by authorized documentation. When I say this, means if you are claiming for cash that has been expended for certain purchases, then there must be receipts that are providing that. If you are claiming for traveling, it means then there must be a travel claim that has been signed and approved that authorizes that as well. So everything must be substantiated. Okay. Right. I'm not sure if I skipped. Okay. The last one is receipts. So normally we see when people are handling money, we should avoid having related individuals who are handling the offering, and we must avoid having the money being removed from where it was collected without being counted, and it must not be counted in isolation by a certain individual, but there must always be two unrelated people who will count the money where it was collected, and then it can be stored then according to the procedure. So After that, we can make deposits into the bank and always cross-reference what was collected with what was deposited and what we have available from the bank statement. Make sure everything always corresponds. Amen. Amen, man. None into Okay, we move to the next term of budgeting. This is budgets is actually a powerful tool to manage church finances, and budgeting eliminates wastage of money, and it eliminates use of money without prioritizing what it needs to be used for. So it allows you that freedom of planning and prioritizing the tasks that you want to use your money for. So then the question is, why must you budget? Because it's a management tool. It gives you financial direction, and it gives an expression to the congregation of who you are and where you want to go. That is why you need to budget. And then who should be involved when you do the budget is the staff, for example, the executive, or if you have a financial team, and then some committee members like coordinators that might be there, or other people that might be involved in different ministries who need to be funded from the kitty. For example, if we have a leg of revivals that we normally fund from the national office, so we need to understand what are their plans for the year, and we need to understand what will be their financial needs from the kitty for the year. So in fact, any other ministry that is funded from the treasury's kit, so they need to be involved with the budgeting, because we need to understand what sort of expenses we are expecting, and then we know how much income we need to raise for the year in order to meet that. Otherwise, we need to delay certain expenditures. That is why we need the budget. So where do you start with budgets? I think there's a leg. Okay, you start with the vision of what are you aiming to achieve. What is it that is in the horizon for the church or organization? And then we need to count how much are we expecting. For example, if we take an example of Christian Crusaders, we have the collection of 50 rands membership fees that we are not doing so well on them. We have the those monies that are collected from the different districts, about 20,000 for non-hosting districts. And then we said, now I don't know if we kept it 200 or we reduced it to 70 for hosting districts, but that is the money that we collect. And then, I mean, offering is sporadic and we only get it in certain times. For example, we have a spaza that we normally rent out a Faskaten. Normally, if we do this planning, budgeting, we will look at those avenues if that is the money that comes consistently. But if it's sporadic, then, I mean, you can't budget for something that you know you're not sure if it will come or not. So that is what you consider. You consider all the avenues, and you include all the other sources of income that the organization will receive. We know when we were fully functioning as an organization running before COVID, we knew that we always get money from South Coast because they always rent our dishes. We always got money from Western Gauteng because they always rent our sponges. So even though it was difficult to estimate how much we get, but historically, if you look at the records, the pattern you can establish in terms of how much we can expect from that. So that is what we will consider. And then looking at how much we have in the bank, we can look at the trend of the bank interests that we get and also include that. But so far we have not had enough money, so it's not something that we can consider in terms of budgeting. That is why it is very important. Okay, right. Then from there, we look at the roles and responsibilities of the treasury, okay, which is what is more important for a treasury office bearer. And then I think, if this is the correct slides, I have also included in these slides qualifications. Yes, there it shows there. So there is always a misconception. I'm not sure if this has to do with how the financial office has been rolled out a gospel, but there is always a misconception between a bookkeeper and the treasury. For some reason, the expectation is that a treasury in the gospel is a bookkeeper, and those two are completely two different people. A treasurer is the chief accounting officer, so it's someone who accounts for the income and the expenditure of the organization. He is the person who disperses the funds. He is responsible to manage what is getting paid and what does not get paid from the church. He is responsible to receive. So it seems as if we reduce the role of a treasury only to receives and records and deposits of funds, but we forget about the accounting duties of the treasury. I mean, if you really want to understand the difference in this, think about what is the treasury of South Africa do. Do they only record funds, or do they give direction on how the funds need to be expended and how the funds need to be allocated for the different areas in the organization? So this is where I always, from my experience, there is always clashes with the expectations of different people in terms of how this can be managed. Amen. So you identify the areas. Okay, let me not go ahead of myself, but that is the role of a treasurer. So if your role as a treasurer is reduced less than this, it will lead to frustration, because you're not gonna fulfill your role. And I do urge, I plead with the treasurers, we need to know our role and fully function in our role in order to bring balance and stability in the organization. You cannot reduce your role to only receiving and recording cash, and that's it. It cannot end there. I mean, you need to look beyond that, work with a executive or a finance committee. You must develop procedures, you must develop policies that will enable the organization to manage its funds. And once you develop those, get them approved, and then start using them to audit, because when you get audited against the policies that you have developed. I mean, how are you supposed to manage funds? And then if there's no policy, then how do you audit something? Because people are just doing what they want to do. And then let's look at the qualification. The qualification, in my mind, I mean, let me say this. If you can get a person who is qualified accountant, who has knowledge of accounting, why not use that person in the organization? If they are born again, they are saved, they love Christ, and they have the skills and the know-how and the information, that is going to put the church or the organization at a different level already, because we have someone who understands financial matters. But nonetheless, the person needs to demonstrate skills and interest in finance. We cannot just, I mean, the organization will not function properly if it has a treasury who must be pushed, who needs to be nudged, who needs to be, I mean, then your recording, your reports will not be detailed, will not be accurate, because this person does not have the passion, does not have the skills, nor the interest in financial matters. So please, when you come to this role and you want to elect and nominate people, always look for those traits from the individual. They must have an ability to keep detailed and accurate records, and they must maintain appropriate confidentiality about the money. And it all starts with them managing their finances. It all starts with them managing the things that they have at their disposal. Then you can tell whether this person can manage the assets and the finance of the organization or not, by looking at how they manage what they have themselves. So they must have this ability to work with individuals in the ministry, because as a treasurer, you work with different people. I mean, you have a team. I mean, in the national office already, you have a team in the office. You have people that are taking a collection, the accounting. So you must have good interpersonal skills to work with other people. Okay, you must be able to identify skills. You must have a skill of identifying new avenues that the church can exploit, where it's going to bring about new sources of income. And you must understand, you must be a person who have an understanding of biblical stewardship, so that you can motivate and encourage people. Bazalwane, asikwazi ukuthatha igogodla umuntu ongakhona ukunikela simmanage imali zebandla. We cannot do that. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster. Umuntu ufuna abe nenhliziyo ekhululekile, who understand that what we have is not us, it's not for us, but belongs to God. We are mere managers or stewards of what God has provided for us. Okay, so we need to have that understanding in this role. And then we have the treasury works closely with the chairperson, because you are not doing your own business, you are running the organization. So you work with the person in charge, who's the vision bearer. And we normally say in treasury does not have a deputy, and actually treasury gets assistance from a secretariat office on certain administrative duties, like the counting of the money, the recording, to make sure there's double or dual recording. Secretary records certain things, also the communication duties as well. And then as I said, he chiefly accounts for the money of the organization, and they manage the cash that is in the bank according to the policy that would have been developed, manage the budget of the organization, and also to make sure that all transactions are authorized. That is the first thing. Maybe I should swap those two. All transactions are authorized and are recorded accordingly. So, and I can give you a number of examples. I'm telling you, we have received claims for unauthorized transactions. So you must know what is in the policy and what is not in the policy, what is allowed and what is not allowed. Uma into it's unauthorized, it's unauthorized. You must state it and stand your ground. Otherwise, awumele umsebenzi ubekelwe office. Prepare and present financial reports to, if you are serving in the you present first to the executive, you present to the district committee. That is, if you are serving, depending where you are serving, where you are elected to serve. So you present in all the committees that are necessary in the structure. Again, like the secretary, you must provide training. However, in this one, I mean, for you to be equipped to provide the training, it means you yourself must have the right training, so that you pass down the skills as required to the necessary people. So you don't just train now, but you must acquire the right knowledge and the right information so that you can train the other people. Okay, manage petty cash. Bazalwane, I cannot overemphasize indaba ye petty cash. Petty cash is a serious thing. I think we should just scrap it, the books, because it causes a lot of issues. Abantu ba record to petty cash as an expense. Petty cash is not an expense. It's just money that has been set aside for certain emergencies. Amen. And sometimes when we lack planning and don't plan properly, that should not constitute emergency. So we need to guard against that. Propose fundraising strategies, review and approve all claims, manage. This is important. As a treasury, you are responsible for the financial health of the organization. The organization cannot collapse and die in your presence, and you are not managing the health. Financial health meaning when the show organization has some funds available to run the organization. If not, you flag, blow the trumpet, raise the red flags, so that abantu understand that now we are running on reserves, we don't have money. I encourage this one. I encourage all treasurers and treasurers who assume new positions in the church, study the financial statements, study the bank statements, study all the records of the church, so that you can identify those areas of high cost expenditures, and then you can provide improvement strategies and highlight those areas of improvement, so that you can point the organization in the right direction. This is not easy, because spending time studying that, it requires more time from your side. But if you're someone who has passion for this, you will always make time to do that, because that is going to serve and prove to be more fruitful for the organization going forward. So I don't know if there's any questions from